What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we are here with Victor of Any Given Sin. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, anytime, man, anytime. It's so awesome to have you here. We got a lot of great singles that have been released on a consistent basis. It's almost been like a yearly tradition now. We got Dynamite that came out in 2021. We got Still Sinking that came out in 2022. And now your latest kick-ass single, Calm Before the Storm. Is this maybe a good representation of like the direction Any Given Sin is going to for a full-length album? Or is this just sort of like scratching the surface and there's going to be a lot more uncharted territory explored?
No, I'd say this is definitely a good idea of what the album's going to sound like. We had some other songs that we took some different liberties with. We tried some other things. We did some co-writing with other people. So some of those songs are going to feel a little different in a great way. We hope and we think. So, but yes, I'd say with the singles that are out, that's kind of the sound of Any Given Sin. That's what we were going for.
Was there like maybe a preconceived vision with the making of each song or for this full length album in a way? Or was your songwriting process very like improvisational and like more experimental in a way?
Yeah, I'd say it's been mostly improvisational, experimental. So the first three songs we ever written, the very first song was Dynamite, which is our first single. So it kind of like we just start writing something, and almost every song in order has been our singles that we put out, that songs that we wrote throughout the last few years. So a lot of that's been just one after another, kind of just trying stuff. And then as we've kind of gotten to recording the album after some of these singles were out, we kind of started asking ourselves then, like, well, what kind of songs don't we have? Or what kind of things do we still want this album to show or say? And so then we're probably a little more looking into, what do we want? But I'd say the first half and most of that album is kind of finding things and just trying stuff.
When you joined up with Any Given Sin, were you kind of looking at the Forbidden EP being like, okay, this is how I have to sing, this is what needs to be? Or were you kind of given like full range to sort of bring your own mix into Any Given Sin?
Yeah, totally. Definitely, I was given full range. That's something I asked for. I didn't want to come in and replace somebody else that I didn't think I could sing like or something like that. I wanted to start fresh with somebody if I'm going to start. So that's kind of what me and Mike Connors, the guitarist, he started Any Given Sin. And so that's just a conversation we had. And again, we sit on his couch like that first night after having that conversation and wrote Dynamite. So he was good with kind of, if you will, abandoning the older material and bringing in a new era.
So you're not going to perform any songs off of the Forbidden EP for a good throwback in a way?
I am not. If Eric O'Dell ever comes back to play a show with the other guys and sings, he was the original singer, that would be great. But I'm kind of I wanted to do my own thing with the group, so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
As a vocalist, have you always preferred to have music present before you came up with any lyrical ideas, or has there ever been like a lyrical idea where maybe that could help guide the direction of the sound in a way?
Yeah, I think for me, usually it starts off with melody, but sometimes a really good line if it's a good line, it's a good line, man. It's like, you got to take it. So sometimes you roll with that. To me, when I'm writing songs or writing lyrics, like getting the melody first, I think to me, it's like that's the first thing people hear. They'll learn the lyrics eventually, but if they're really interested in the song, that melody is the first thing. So that's kind of where I start. And then after that, then you just look for great lines, and if you can.
Yeah. You ever had like the best lyrics ever, and then they're always like one syllable over like every arrangement that you have?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It happens constantly. You know what I mean? Like you have this great thing, and it's like, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And so either toss it out or hope it pops up somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are going to be very excited. I'm very excited to finally see you guys play with El Nino. That's going to be my first time popping the Any Given Sin cherry, as for a lot of people around. But does Any Given Sin, within your lyricism in the music, is there like a specific message or something that you do try to convey within your lyrical ideas, or do you try to keep your art very much open to interpretation?
So we definitely like to write in a way that people can relate something. We don't try to get too specific because we want people to be able to relate to the song or to what's going on. But I'd say for the most part, we definitely try to we talk a lot about like inner turmoil and things like that. Any kind of trauma you might have had, fears, sadness, all these sort of things we'll talk about. But we like to put a glimmer of hope in there. You know what I mean? How to get out of that, how to move forward. Or let this be a release for those sorts of things. So I'd say that's kind of our bread and butter when it comes to the context of a lot of the music. It's moving on out of pain, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Does it always come from like within and from a more personal place, or is observation or kind of like looking for external sources of inspiration almost as much part of your songwriting process?
I would say the second. There are plenty of songs that come out of like my personal experiences, but we have other members of the band, other stories that get told, things like that you relate to, but not in the same specific way, but then you find you're like, wow, there's a lot of people that feel this way. This is a great premise, for a song.
Mm-hmm. And, when people tell me like, when writing this song or this album, we all mutually came together and we all had an agreement, I don't really believe it to a degree, because you're in a band with 4 to 5 other people. You're writing a dozen
Right.
or so songs. There's going to be plenty of room for disagreement in there. But can that maybe actually help in a way? Could maybe people having different ideas and feeling differently or being in different headspaces maybe actually help enhance the contrast of any given sin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there wasn't if it was just one person writing, this music wouldn't sound like, our band wouldn't sound like it sounded. Having all these, we might butt heads or have different ideas of things when we're, eventually get to the recording part of the evolution, so there's a lot of things going on, but yeah, in the end, I think if it wasn't all the hands that are in it, it wouldn't sound like it does.
Yeah, of course. And but like when it comes to like writing this together, does there eventually have to be like, is there at all like a mutual sort of emotion that's channeled into it?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely say that. When we start writing the lyrics and writing the melodies and things like that, a lyric can start changing what the music wants to do and things like that, but we end up getting it to a spot where everybody's kind of like, yeah, that's good. You know what I mean? So in some way, it might be a mixture of many people's ideas and not one guy's, but it's in the end, we all are in a spot that we really like it.
For you, as the lyricist and vocalist, do you prefer to maybe write and come up with ideas when you're in the company of your other bandmates, or, isolation being such a great fuel for creativity, you prefer to like write alone in your own element where there's nothing between you and your instrumentation or your pen?
Yeah, I absolutely have to write alone. Like, I can sit and collab for a little bit, but if somebody says, hey, man, we need you to go write this verse and chorus, I need to walk out of the room and kind of pace around and get in my own head, you know what I mean? That's just me personally, but I work better that way. I don't think there's a right or wrong way with it. But yeah, isolation for me.
Yeah, I imagine too that inspiration sometimes strikes at the most inconvenient of times, right?
Yeah, definitely. When you're driving, you can't write something down, or your phone's done fallen, and you're trying to say it in, yeah, always.
Yeah, I've always said that they need to invent like pro audio or studio gear, like where it's modified in your car in a way, so like you could just record while driving. Definitely some.
I want Neuralink in my head, and then it's hooked up to Pro Tools, and then what I think just gets recorded. That's the ultimate goal here, technologically.
Maybe we could have Mascot hit up Elon Musk and make that happen. You'll be the first rock band to collaborate with Elon Musk.
I'd be good with that, man.
Yeah, exactly. You'd be selling Teslas for your merch.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yep. But this is kind of like a philosophical question I like to ask a lot of artists. Mm-hmm. Could inspiration really be sought out? Is that something that you can actually look for and find, or is it something that just has to strike you in a way?
Man, that's a really good question. I would say it probably has to be something that somewhat strikes you. I think it's be something you can remember, like it struck you 3 days ago, but you can be like, still channel it in some way, but I also think too that like creativity can play a role in that. If you're a person who's constantly trying to be creative versus someone that maybe doesn't, inspiration you may set yourself up for the opportunity more often. But yeah, I think it's something that's going to be struck. That'd be my opinion.
Yeah, of course. I mean, one of my favorite vocalists, Burton Seabell, who used to sing for Fear Factory, he says the closest thing to lightning is inspiration. Like lightning and inspiration are sister things in a way. And sometimes you have to try to capture it in a bottle, and most of the time you can't, right?
Right.
Yep. Now, when it comes to like the overall style that Any Given Sin has, because I feel like your style could appeal to multiple fans, for rock fans, for metal fans. It feels like I can't pigeonhole Any Given Sin into just one specific genre. Is it fair to say? I know it's kind of cliche, like what are your inspirations in a way, but is it fair to say that everybody in Any Given Sin has multiple inspirations, which is key to your eclectic sound?
Yeah. I'd say we have not vastly different, but like, if you ask anybody, you're not going to get the exact same bands that are your inspiration. Like, they're completely different for most of us. Like, mine was kind of like, I was a young child in the 90s. So, it was like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and all that sort of stuff for me. So, where some of the guys, they were more 80s, they were more metal, like Dio and, things like that. So, and we all like that sort of music. But, yeah, I say everybody comes from somewhere different.
But have you noticed, like, throughout your touring experiences and playing shows, that you played in front of a variety of different fan bases as well, and like whether it would be different lovers of music or different generations in a way?
Yeah, we've had some pretty interesting, like we went out with Steel Panther before, so pretty much we go in, I don't think anybody in their crowd ever heard of us any night. You know what I mean? I'd be like, anybody ever heard of us before? Just curious. And you'd have like 6 people, which that was awesome though, because you're getting people who've never heard you before, so you get a chance to expose yourself to a lot of people. So yeah, and yeah, I'm sure it was a mixed bag there. Some people probably liked us, and some people probably were like, "You're not '80s, bro, so you need to back out of here." But it was still great. It was good. So I think it's cool to at least try your stuff out there for any sort of audience and just see where it goes. It'd be great.
Yeah, you got to do a tour with like Behemoth or Mayhem and see what the vibe is there.
Yeah, some Gwar or something. We'll get some suits going and.
I've seen Gwar play with so many different styles of bands, though. I think at this point they could just bring out. They could bring Mariah. They could do a tour of Mariah Carey at this point.
Yes, that would be interesting.
Yeah, right. Bring her on stage. But here's the most difficult question of the interview. Now, going back to songwriting, how do you know when you're finished with a song?
I never do, and I'll be honest with you. It could be 3, 5, 10 years after the song's written. I'm like, I could have said that. I always got something else. I'm like, I could have said something else there. I don't think for me it ever is. I'm not really a perfectionist, but I'm always like, I'm always the guy that like is ready for the next song. I'm going to try the next one. I'm going to try to do another song, and let's get on the next one. So I think there's some of that goes on with it, but yeah, I don't know. You think something's done, but then years later you're like, I don't know that I'm finished with the song ever, completely. You feel good about a song, but years later you can always like maybe hear something you wish you would, a different inflection when you sing it, or a slightly different line you could have told, or maybe a different bridge idea or something. There's always something that you go back through your songs. But I think once people really gravitate to a song and they're singing it at your shows and stuff, like, you're not going to do anything about it at that point. So, it's good to go.
Yeah,
it's finished enough.
I like to see one band have a career where like they put out one-hit wonder of a song, and then everything they put out from there is just that song with a different iteration of it.
Different stuff. That would be interesting. Yeah, I think I could handle being in that band because I want to change it up now and then.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. And I have 2 more questions for you. But when it comes to playing this material, do you feel like the material can evolve with you and grow with you over time as an artist? Or do you prefer if everything that you create is more or less a snapshot of who you are at that particular time? Do you prefer to keep Dynamite in 2021, Still Sinking in 2022, and Calm Before the Storm in 2023, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say that I feel kind of like it depends on how you look at it. I think the song can grow with you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for a band. I mean, some people get mad at a band if they change their sound over time, you know what I mean, or something like that. Sometimes you'll have. I don't feel that way personally. I get why people do, but when it comes to whatever your legacy is, I don't think you ever lose that. You could say it's a snapshot in time. Like you take anybody's album they wrote when they're 20, and an album they write when they're 40. it's going to be a different snapshot of you, but it's still you, and it's just it can follow you just like any memory or anything you've ever done, you know. So that's kind of how I look at music. It's just a continuation of you, where it might not be exactly what you are today, but it was who you were, and it's contributed to who you are now, you know.
Definitely. And the final question I wanted to ask you is going back to the live presence. Is there a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do when you are songwriting, or do you consider playing live and songwriting two completely separate arts altogether?
I would say they're slightly different. Sometimes, like when I'm singing in the booth, I can feel that same thing that you might feel on stage. But when you're writing, I don't know. I think it's a totally different spot because for me, I become really introverted when I'm writing, and I want to suck down, be away from people. Where performance has to be pretty extroverted, you know, pretty social. So I think I can't quite get in that same spot just based on, you know, the elements of what they are and how I like to do them. But I try to keep whatever emotion or whatever thing you're trying to portray in the song, I'd like that to come out live as well, you know.
Yeah, definitely. But here's the thing, though. Being that with playing live, not to undermine it in any way, but you are taking the songs that you wrote and you're just replicating it in a live setting. So is there anything remotely creative about playing live?
Yeah, I think there could be something definitely creative about playing live. You can, there's a lot of room for improv. There's a lot of room for bantering with each other, messing with the crowd, getting the crowd involved, you know, having a talk back kind of thing. Like, I think there's a lot of creativity you can have with a song live, especially if you've played it over and over and over 100 times. You know, it's great to try something a little different live with it, you know, get the crowd more involved, make it more of a reason for people to like the song.
Yeah. Is crowd interaction and stage presence, is that something you could actually rehearse or practice, or is that just something that has to come as you perform more and more?
I think it could be either. It's something you can do more of, but I think you could choreograph a show and you could go do that. You know what I mean? I think that's a possible thing to do. We don't do that per se. Like there's not a lot of, like maybe how we exit in our intro or something like that might be the same thing, you know, here and there. But a lot of it is just you kind of just feel it. I'd rather improv. It's a lot more fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one time, I think it was a Creed. They wrote Higher, it just began with improv on stage. Like, we're gonna write a song on stage, and they conveniently had the show taped, and before you know it, that was a hit song. So
and very big hum.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you never know when improv could lead to something amazing. So
I'm with you.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, for such an awesome conversation. Is there just anything else with Any Given Sin you'd like to promote with the upcoming tour? If you're allowed to say, of course, when we be getting a full-length album and so on and so forth.
Right. So definitely check out our song, Calm Before the Storm. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all the things. Check us out. Our tour dates are on anygivensinband.com, as well as our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those sorts of things. Definitely, we'll be on tour with Saliva. Our first show is March 17th down in Florida, and we'll be out with them for about 3 weeks. So check that out for sure. And I'd like to comment on the album. I'll tell you that the album's coming in 2023.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Any Given Sin. Catch them on their upcoming tour with Saliva. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.